Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Ruthless Aggression Era podcast. As always, I am your host, Mel Matt, and joining me tonight, someone making his Ruthless Aggression Era podcast debut. I'm so excited for this. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight, the Saskatchewan Spinning Nerve Hold, a.k.a. Mambo number 5.
Good day, Mr. Metal Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. I'm thankful that you asked me on for this. This was a good show, and it brought back some really good memories, fond and otherwise, for me. So I'm excited to talk about this. This was a fun card.
Well, now that you say that, Mox is going to be even more annoyed at me. The fact that you got a good show just 1 week after we did originals.
It's that's the one thing about this era. Some of the stuff was so hit and miss, but thankfully, fingers crossed, we got a good one this week. So good stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get Mox a good episode. Just throw him a bone.
We love you, Mock. Sorry you're getting all the crap end of the stick here.
I really should just put him on for Great American Bash 2004, the Concrete Crypt match. just to be a jerk. But yeah, tonight's episode is going to be the first show of 2004, the Royal Rumble 2004.
I'm excited to talk about these. Royal Rumbles have always, since the very first Royal Rumble, they've always been my very favorite pay-per-view. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the whole difference of the Royal Rumble match, how it's so much different than everything else on the card. There's always fun stories that are playing out through that match. Sometimes things are culminating from feuds, or else new feuds are built off from that match. And it's just, they're always a fun and exciting match. Even the bad ones usually have something good to look forward to.
Oh yeah, totally. Royal Rumble was one of my favorite pay-per-views as well, mainly because of the Rumble match itself. So yeah, this will be a pretty fun review, I think.
Totally. And I mean, there's some definitely controversial stuff that we'll touch on, I'm sure, but that's all part and parcel with some of the people that are involved in these matches.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think of the stage design for this show?
You know what? It was kind of simple, but it worked. Like it wasn't anything really outrageous or anything, but you know, it wasn't hideous, but it didn't pop like some of the stages do. It was just kind of there. So I don't know. It was good, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say I pretty much agree with you as well. It's better than Armageddon 2003. That's for damn sure. Which was the last pay-per-view. Like, it was literally just a Raw set, but with like giant A's on fire on the side of them, and Triple H's logo plastered over the Titantron in steel. Like, that's literally all it was. It was basically just a Raw set. So here it's a bit more unique, and it's nothing, like you said, it's nothing outrageous. It's nothing special, but for what it is, it's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, most people aren't tuning in for the stage design anyway. So, I mean, it's a bonus when the stage design is cool and it kind of draws like your eye, and it's something else to look forward to. But when it really comes down to it, the stage design isn't going to sell you any more pay-per-views than any other stage design in my book, anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked the stage designs personally. I think it always just kind of sets it apart from other shows that WWE does, and I think that's something that's missing nowadays. You know, they always have the same exact sets for pay-per-views, but here back then, you know, even if it was a Raw set, like in Armageddon, they still did something different. So I don't know. For me, I've always liked the unique pay-per-view designs. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I play, Day of Reckoning all the time, and we get to see unique set designs of those kind of games. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Oh no, I mean it definitely adds to the show when it is a outstanding design. One other thing that really jumped out at me is the fireworks going off at the start and through some of the entrances and stuff. I was like, oh man, didn't realize how much I really miss that. I mean, they do some pretty cool graphics and stuff now on the stage and all that, but the fireworks really do add to like the show. So it's kind of too bad that they've gone away from that so much.
Yeah, they really do add a lot. They really do add to a lot of the pomp and circumstance of a pay-per-view or big event or whatever. So the first match is a tables match for the World Tag Team titles. It's Evolution, Ric Flair and Batista taking on the Dudley Boys. Batista gets some cheap heat to start off things by trashing the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, is it really cheap heat when it's true? Nobody really likes the Eagles, do they?
I don't know. I'll have to check my fantasy football and see if I have an Eagle on my roster.
I know I have one or two, but then looking at my record, it doesn't surprise me that I have Eagles on my team.
So yeah, the Evolution.
This is a fun match. It was short, but it was good, and you had Coach in there, and it was just reminding me of how much of a smarmy little jerk that Coach was in this era. You just loved the fact that prior to the pay-per-view that the Dudley Boys had actually put him through a table, so kind of getting his comeuppance, and it was always nice to see because Coach was just such a slime ball during this era. So it was always nice to see him get his due.
Yeah, totally. The match starts with both teams fighting on the outside, and then the finish of the match comes when Coach comes down to the ring. His ribs are bandaged as he was 3D'd by the Dudley Boys on the Go Home show for Raw, and that distraction leads to Batista spine bustering Devon Dudley through a table for the win.
Which is kind of nice when you kind of look back at it. Batista's entrance into the main roster he was kind of the heavy for Devon's, what was it, Reverend Devon character, and
Reverend
Batista
Devon.
and Batista was the deacon or the demon deacon or whatever they called him. But so it's kind of a nice little touch that he's working with somebody that kind of mentored him and all that. So. You don't see the Dudleys going through the tables as much as they put people through the tables. So it was a good match. It was, a short little sprint, but it was a fun opener. Who doesn't like people busting through tables and, breaking stuff, and even Batista throwing the table at the start when it bounces off the rope and comes back and falls on everybody else. It's little stuff like that. It's just kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, this was a fun opening match, but this was only 4 minutes long, and that will be a running theme throughout the night. And that is one of the problems I have with this show is that a lot of the undercard is really short. Like there are really short matches on here.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen this match in particular go, another 4 or 5 minutes, get it up to the 10-minute mark. I mean, all 4 of those guys can go in the ring. So it's not like you're going to lose, anything. It's not like they have to have the sprint match. So I agree with you that it definitely took away from some of the undercard. So yeah, it is what it is though, right?
Yeah. And the next match, Rey Mysterio versus Jamie Noble for the Cruiserweight Championship.
This is another sprint match. I think this one only clocked in at just over 3 minutes from my memory.
I think so.
Yeah, it was all right. Like it definitely didn't allow anybody in there to really shine, other than I guess maybe Nydia with her blinded character that I had completely forgotten about until I rewatched this show.
Yeah, like there's a lot to take in this storyline. Jamie Noble has pretty much more or less turned heel here. You know, Jamie Noble had turned face back in July, shortly after Vengeance, which I completely forgot about. I had no idea Jamie Noble was even a face at all in WWE at this point in time. And so Jamie Noble, Nydia had gotten blinded by Tajiri's poison mist. And so after that, Jamie Noble was sort of exploiting her blindness to help him win matches. And that sort of comes back to bite him when Nydia ends up accidentally tripping him and allowing Mysterio to hit a 619 and a West Coast pop for the win. And Jamie Noble and Nydia go in the feud after this. They actually do end up in a blindfold match at the next pay per view.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, that's it's kind of silly storytelling, and because I mean, shortly after that, didn't she come back totally healed again? So it's kind of funny stuff. But the one thing I did like about it is that, you know, with the blinding of Tajiri, that was the one and only time that he used his poison black mist. So
yeah,
that was, you know, at least they had a little bit of something different there and had some story behind it.
yeah. Like I think after No Way Out, I think Nydia ends up getting drafted to Raw, and I think Jamie Noble ends up getting released for a while. Then he comes back.
I guess getting drafted to Raw cures blindness.
Yeah.
But yeah, there wasn't other than that whole little segment. There wasn't too much to say about this. If you've seen a Mysterio match, you've seen the end to this match. He didn't even get in most of his greatest hits. It was just too short to let anybody really shine.
Yeah, it was to the point where why was this match even on the card? If they were only going to give like 3 minutes, then it might as well just not even have been on the card in the first place. It definitely felt rushed. Not a bad match by any means. It was fine. Like both guys did the best they could with what limited time they had, but it did feel a bit rushed.
Yeah, I agree totally.
And so I believe the next match is Eddie Guerrero versus Chavo Guerrero.
Yes, and Chavo is out with Chavo Guerrero Sr. in his corner in this one. Was a little disappointed. I was looking forward to seeing Eddie come out in a really cool lowrider, and it was just a Chevy truck. I was like, oh, because he used to come out in some pretty cool cars, and that one was pretty lame for the lowriders. But this match, I mean, you know, the story, Chavo blaming Eddie for their loss of the championship or the tag title, and they kind of fell out from there, and then everything goes south. Families getting involved, everybody's hating each other, and so, you know, there was definitely some emotion that went into this match, and I thought they did a pretty good job of displaying that throughout the match. And this was one of the longer undercard matches, so it did get a little bit more time. So that was nice to see.
Oh yeah, totally. Los Guerreros, you know, they've been building this story since shortly after No Mercy back in October. So it's been building for a few months. Kurt Angle was involved, and it's for some reason Chavo Guerrero Sr. actually comes into the mix and basically becomes Chavo Guerrero Jr.'s manager for a few months after this. So there's a lot of things going on with it. And it is a pretty good match. There's a really good storytelling here. You know, he really is just reluctant to kind of wail on Chavo, you know, because he says that he doesn't want to fight his own blood.
Yeah, and then at the end, you know, he gets right vicious, and you know, Chavo pushed him over the edge, and Eddie went over the edge and beat him up quite mercilessly, and tied his brother to the bottom rope with his tie. So, you know, and then proceeded to beat up Chavo right in front of his face. So, I mean, it's got to be tough for father to watch his son get pummeled and can't do anything about it. So yeah, there's some really good storytelling there, I thought.
Yeah, I think like the post match stuff was better than the actual match.
Yeah, absolutely. I was struck by the fact that I thought Chavo Guerrero Sr. kind of looked more like Cheech Marin's brother than he did Eddie Guerrero's brother, but that's just me.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I thought this was a pretty good match. There wasn't a lot of action to it, but there was some good storytelling here, and I think that really makes up for it. And they did get more time with this one, not a lot, but they did get a bit more time, and they really used it to its full potential.
And if I'm not mistaken, this was just the first match in the feud that went over the next little bit. So it makes sense that they wouldn't want to give everything away right off the start. So if I'm remembering correctly, it's a good opening match for a feud that, a blood feud that's going to go on for a little while from my memory anyways.
And I'm trying to remember if it did. It doesn't go to the next pay-per-view because the next pay-per-view, both Eddie and Chavo actually end up winning up titles. They both go on to have pretty successful solo careers after this. So they might have had a match on SmackDown after this, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, me neither. I thought there was more, but maybe that's farther down the road too. I can't remember. Or maybe I'm just totally mistaken.
Well, I know they face off like the SmackDown after No Way Out, but I can't remember they faced off between Royal Rumble and No Way Out, like on SmackDown or something like that.
Right. But yeah, it was a fun match. I mean, you got two guys that can definitely go in the ring, so you could tell that they were holding back for any future confrontations. But it was a good opening card match. Nothing wrong with this one in my books.
Yeah. So next match, Hardcore Holly versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. This is such a bizarre matchup.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was some decent story behind this too, with Brock having accidentally broken Hardcore Holly's neck, what was it, a year and a half earlier? And now Holly was coming back to get his revenge. The fact that Hardcore Holly was in a WWE Championship match was a little strange, being his normal placement on the cards. But I mean, I actually kind of enjoyed this match. It was pretty hard hitting. It was back before Brock was suplex, German suplex, F5, German suplex, F5 win. So there was a little bit more to his moveset. And the guy was a beast. Like, there's a reason why they call him the Beast. Like, he's a scary dude. And Hardcore Holly was definitely one of those guys that could hang with anyone. He was a tough as nails competitor. So this was a pretty hard hitting match, and I kind of actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did enjoy this match better than I thought I would, because I thought, it's Hardcore in the title match, a world title match. Like, this is going to be terrible, and it wasn't great, but it was fine. I mean, I don't know if it's world title worthy, but there is some hard hitting stuff in here. Hardcore Holly immediately goes after Brock Lesnar on the outside. Brock Lesnar just sort of gets the F5 out of nowhere for the win. It's fine. I don't know if it's world championship match worthy, especially on a Big Four show like the Royal Rumble. But I mean, for what it was certainly a better match than I thought it would be.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the fact that there was times where it looked like Holly could have possibly, pinned or won the match, and he instead goes to try to break Brock Lesnar's neck, which, I mean, come on, look at that guy's neck. If he lands on it off a moonsault and it doesn't break it there, Hardcore Holly's never going to break that thing. So, I mean, but it was a good little throwback to, Holly wanting to hurt Brock. But I agree with you. Like, it should have been for a mid-card title at the most, not for the world championship.
Right. So the next match, it's Triple H versus Shawn Michaels for the World Heavyweight title in a last man standing match.
This, I wasn't a huge fan of this match, to be honest. I'm not always a fan of the last man standing matches. Some of them can be amazing, and I mean this one wasn't bad per se, but I don't know. Triple H matches, in general, I kind of sort of find boring, and I think that kind of played into my not loving this match because it's kind of the same thing over and over again. Um, when he's hitting on all cylinders, he's great. And I don't think Shawn Michaels brought everything out of him in this match, for me, anyways. I mean, not saying it was a bad match because it was a good match. There's some pretty cool spots. The moonsault through the table, a couple other things. And they were both a bloody mess by the end of this. So if you're one of those people who thinks color adds to a match, there is definitely a lot of color in this one. But I don't know. It was. I've seen better last man standing matches, so this one kind of fell flat a little bit for me, anyways.
Yeah, and I get that. The story of it starts where Shawn Michaels and Triple H end up having a match for the world title on the last Raw of 2003, and it ends up being a draw. Both Shawn Michaels and Triple H's shoulders are on the mat as Shawn Michaels is pinning Triple H, so it ends up in a draw. But Stone Cold grants Shawn Michaels a rematch, which is this match, and yeah, like last man stand matches, they're tough matches to pull off. They really are. Like you sort of have to. It sort of has to be a really smartly booked kind of match because if this kind of a match is done wrong, I think it just winds up being boring. And for me, this match was never really boring. I don't know if it was the best match they could have had together, but I think for what it was, I think this was one of their better matches during this feud. This was a really good match, I thought. I really enjoyed this match. Shawn Michaels just up and breaks the Muda scale here, just like really, really bloody, like probably breaking this Survivor Series record. Just blood all over him. Triple H as well, but Shawn Michaels really just takes the cake in terms of blood here.
Yeah, it was like I had forgotten how bloody this one got at the end. I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's I'm actually a little squeamish here. But yeah, it was something else for sure. And I mean, you got these guys. Even though I was saying it fell a little flat for me, like don't get me wrong, it's still an enjoyable match. These guys were both at the height of their, powers at that point. They weren't. Neither of them was ever really putting out duds, so to speak. So it just, yeah, like I was saying, it was a little flat for me. I didn't think it was the best, and maybe that was the draw ending. I think maybe if there was a more conclusive ending to it, I may have enjoyed it more. I don't always like when they go to that kind of storytelling, especially being that, like you said, they had their previous match that ended in a draw. I think there could have been a more definitive way to end this. If you wanted to keep the title on Triple H, you have his Evolution bandmates out there. A last man standing match is no disqualification match. There's no reason they couldn't have come out and interfered, done something dastardly to keep the title on Triple H, in my opinion.
They could have duct taped him to the ring post.
There is always that, right?
Duct tape? Are you serious? Duct tape?
Enough loops of that stuff. It's pretty tough to break.
No, it would have been a great callback for Batista years later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like the finish of the match, like I don't know how to feel about it. The finish of the match comes when both Triple H and Shawn Michaels hit their finishers on each other one after another, and both guys are laid out at the end, and it ends up being the draw. Both guys can't get up. So it ends up in a draw. And I don't know how to feel about that. Because the feud does go on after this. They face each other in triple threat matches involving Benoit at WrestleMania and Backlash, and they end up having one final match at Bad Blood as well as Taboo Tuesday. So the feud does go on after this, but at the same time, I don't know if a if this kind of a finish was really necessary for this, but I can understand why they did it.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that too. And like I said, that was probably my biggest drawback of the match for me. I think there was just better ways they could have gone. But I do understand that they're trying to show that they're equals. They're, no one's necessarily better than the other. So I guess in that sense, it makes sense that they would end it this way. But I don't know. I wasn't a fan of the ending for sure.
So now it is time for the main event, the Royal Rumble match. But first, Eric Bischoff comes out to the ring, trashes Philadelphia, AECW, and Paul Heyman SmackDown. Paul Heyman comes down to the ring and tackles Eric Bischoff, and Stone Cold ends up stunning them both.
You know what? I actually had totally forgotten about that segment until it came out, and I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. When's the last time you ever see Paul Heyman get physical with anyone? He's usually on the receiving end of those kind of things. So, and Eric Bischoff has always been one of those guys when he's the heel manager that you want to see get slapped down. So to see Heyman kind of do it was great. And who doesn't pop for a Stone Cold Stunner every now and then? Doesn't matter who he's doing it to. Everyone's going to cheer for it and be right behind it. So this was a fun little segment.
Yeah, totally. And backstage, Goldberg is interviewed and runs into Brock Lesnar. The second segment after Survivor Series, which I completely forgot to mention in the review of that because I forgot about that segment. So it's clear that they're sort of building towards some kind of inter-promotional match with them.
Yes, and we all know what happens in that interpromotional match. So at least the build was entertaining. I thought the backstage little confrontation was good for what it was. Nothing special, but it was effective. It moved the story to where they're wanting to move it. So it was good.
And so now it is time for the Royal Rumble match. Entrants number 1 and 2 are Chris Benoit and Randy Orton.
And here's where the controversy starts, because we've got a very controversial figure in Mr. Chris Benoit for reasons that everybody knows. This, I had a little bit of a tough time watching this. Before all that went down, I was a huge Chris Benoit fan. Growing up in Alberta, being a fan of Stampede Wrestling, where Chris Benoit cut his teeth. I was a huge fan. I mean, I loved the story that they were telling with him here, where he wasn't going to ever get a chance at the heavyweight championship or any world championship again. So really his only recourse is to enter the Rumble. But, then everything that happens down the road, I understand why WWE distances themselves from Benoit. But, he was a huge part of SmackDown during this era. He was an amazing wrestler. I'm at the point now where I get why they don't want to talk about him, but he did have a legacy. And I try to separate the character that he was playing from the man, and the character of Chris Benoit was great, and the storytelling was great. And quite honestly, I started marking out again. Like I said, I've always been a fan, so it was good to watch a Benoit match again, because I really haven't watched much of his stuff since everything happened. So I had forgotten how good the man was.
Yeah, I do try to separate the character and the person as well.
but it's tough to do sometimes, right? So, and I can understand why people want to avoid him at all costs. So, but you know, it started really well. Chris Benoit, Randy Orton. Randy Orton was great in this period as well. So they come in and they're going at it, and you know, started off really strong, I thought.
Oh yeah, totally. Like they really do a good job, sort of warming up for the for this entire match.
And then the third member comes in shortly after, and that's Mark Henry right there. So he gets a big scary dude coming in early to eliminate possibly number 1 and 2. And he comes in and does his normal Mark Henry introduction to the Hall of Pain. I'm going to destroy some people. Until he gets eliminated by Chris Benoit fairly rapidly, actually. I thought that was pretty good. You know, they didn't make it look unbelievable. I thought it was a good elimination. That's where he try to remember how that happened. He ended up coming and kicking him, and Mark Henry fell over the rope. So that was all right.
Yeah, I think so. That's a big elimination, and it's actually the last time we'll see Mark Henry for a while. He ended up getting injured about a month or so after this, and he doesn't really come back in a more prominent role until around Royal Rumble 2006, I think.
Yeah, it sounds about right. And who came in after Mark Henry was Tajiri, and I guess he actually got eliminated before Mark Henry did, because he put the spider on Mark Henry in the corner and then got knocked out because he was already over the top ropes, and all that happened, which, you know, kind of a dumbass move. Like, why are you putting yourself over the top rope for somebody to knock you out? But these are the kind of things that happen in a Royal Rumble, and you just kind of got to roll with it, right? So it was a fun moment.
There were a lot of moments like that in this match when I was watching it. Like, there are so many dumbasses in this match.
There always are, and you kind of look forward to some of the dumbass moments, which we'll touch on a few coming forward for sure.
Hold on a second.
And I think what we had, Bradshaw came in at number 5. Yes, I believe it was Bradshaw coming in number 5. And
yeah, all right, I'm back.
Sorry. Yeah, so Bradshaw, I think, was the number 5 entry, and he was actually the first guy eliminated. I think he only lasted less than a minute. Benoit took care of him in pretty short order.
Yeah, he really didn't last that long. Now that I think about it, which is funny considering what happened, what ends up happening with Bradshaw just a few months after this.
Oh yeah. And your number 6 entrant was Rhino, and he came in and kind of wrecked the field. He was goring everyone left, right, and center. So he did his normal damage, and he lasted for a little bit longer. I think he was in there for about 15 minutes or somewhere in that area. And then he ended up being followed by Matt Hardy, version 1, the Mattitude. I gotta admit, I always loved version 1 of Matt Hardy. I thought I was an MFer for sure. It was some of the
same here.
I think actually that was probably my very favorite version of Matt Hardy. I mean, I enjoy the broken woken stuff, but that stuff was amazing. Like the little things that he had coming up on the screen at the time. It was a very, very fun character for sure.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, I think moving to Raw was kind of a mistake for him because he is kind of lost He sort of lost in the shuffle here on Raw. At least on SmackDown, he had Shannon Moore as his follower. Now he doesn't have that anymore. He's just kind of floating around in the lower mid card.
Yeah, and that was too bad, because I think they could have really done something amazing with that character if they would really ran with it. It is what it is, right? It happens to everybody at some point. It's too bad it happened to Matt. Who came in after that? I believe it was the genetic freak, Mr. Scott Steiner.
Big Papa Pump.
Big Papa Pump. I've always been a big fan of Scott Steiner. The guy's absolutely insane. He came in and destroyed everybody with his suplexing. So that's always fun to watch. After Scott Steiner, who did we have? Matt Morgan. I had totally forgotten that Matt Morgan ever even wrestled with WWE. It's surprising. Like, the guy was a big dude. I thought, and they were really hyping him up as like the blue chip prospect, that he was going to do something amazing. He really didn't. He just kind of fizzled out, kind of disappeared until he went over to TNA much later in his career. That was a little surprise.
Yeah, I think this is the last time that we see Matt Morgan for a bit. Like, he sort of goes back to OVW after this. I guess because they finally realize, okay, this guy is nowhere near ready. Nowhere near ready for the main roster. He does come back a couple months after this. No, a couple years back after this. He ends up aligning himself with Carlito, I believe. He ends up aligning himself with Carlito, and he also had a stuttering gimmick, which I'm sure Vince McMahon personally came up with.
Sounds like something Vince would come up with. And then didn't he was also part of that stable for a while. Wasn't it him and A-Trade and Nathan Jones and somebody else? I thought they were.
Yeah, Team Lesnar.
Oh, Team Lesnar. That's right. That's what that was.
But AKA the worst Survivor Series team ever.
Totally right. When you look at that team on paper, they should have dominated, but man, they were pathetic for sure. And then after Matt Morgan, we had Stand Back. Here comes the Hurricane. I always love when the Hurricane comes in. He's never going to win, but he's always fun. He came in, was fun, tried to choke slam Matt Morgan, which was a visual that was pretty amusing, and then promptly got himself eliminated. Lawn darted really quite far over the top rope, actually, and it looked like he tweaked his knee pretty good after that as well.
So the next guy out is Booker T.
King Booker. I guess he was his
original theme. So, good news, Mox. You were not the only one to suffer for the originals. 5 had to suffer through some of that as well. Next guy is Kane. I get eliminated during Kane's entrance. Did you notice that? Did you notice that there were a couple guys that got eliminated during the entrances?
Yeah, then they kind of almost even the announced teams almost kind of missed it. I did actually notice that a couple times where they'd all of a sudden go back to the ring, and you're like, oh, wait a second, what happened here? Where'd this guy go? It was more kind of in the early part of the Rumble that I noticed that, but yeah, they definitely didn't do the best job on that in this Rumble.
Damn it, Kevin Dunn. Kane Kane just throughout the end for however long he's in, and then the next entrance comes, and it's the Undertaker's gong. The first build up for Undertaker and Kane at WrestleMania.
Right, yeah, and then Kane ended up getting eliminated after that because of the distraction from the gong, and promptly goes out and destroys poor little Spike Dudley on the ramp. And then I don't believe Spike ever actually got into the match from my recollection.
Hashtag Spike-a-mania. He was never eliminated from the Rumble.
Oh, there you go.
Number 14 is Rikishi.
Rikishi is always a fun guy. I always loved Rikishi. And he came in and, gave his good old stink face to whoever it was. I can't even actually remember. To who? Randy. Can't say that you didn't love seeing Randy Orton get a stink face. So,
it was Matt Morgan.
Oh, was it Matt? Okay. Either way, fun move to watch. So Rikishi was always a fun guy in the ring. So I always enjoyed that.
The next entrant is Rene Dupree. Go on.
And we still have Mr. Chris Benoit has been hanging out since number 1, and Randy Orton through this whole time. So they're doing some good stuff. And, last a pretty good time in this Rumble so far.
Yeah, totally. And the next entrant is Rene Dupree, and Taz has no clue who he is.
Yes, and then he came in and promptly eliminated Matt Hardy, and then did his little jig in the ring, which that looks so silly. Like really I still laugh when I see it. And then promptly got booted out of the ring himself by Rikishi. So he wasn't in there for very long, that's for sure. Then I believe A-Train was the next entrant into the Rumble shortly after that. Yeah. And he came out and was doing a good big man squash, going through and demolishing everyone. So, and he wasn't at that point. He was starting to grow out all his chest hair, so he had the man sweater going on.
Yeah, and this is, I believe, the last time we see A-Train on the podcast. He doesn't really do much after this. He does end up getting drafted to Raw, but he gets released later on during this year. I don't think he appears on any more pay-per-views after this. After that, he goes to Japan and sort of reinvents himself, and he comes back to WWE as Tensai, and now he's the NXT head trainer. So I think it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, and man, it was too good. Too bad for Matt Bloom there, because he's such a good guy. And I mean, he had such a great run in Japan, and then they could have done so much with Lord Tensei, I think, until they just kind of farmed him out and made him a comedy act. But I thought he could have been so much more. But in the end, it all worked out well for him, and so I guess that's a good story. At least it's good to see. And after A-Train, we had Mr. Shelton Benjamin come out. He came out and he wasn't in the match for very long at all before being eliminated by Randy Orton. I think it was less than a minute for Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah. And so next up, Ernest the Cat Miller. And I forgot about this little run he had in WWE here.
Yeah, me too. I was surprised to see him because I remember him and I remember actually quite liking him in his WCW days. But I had completely forgot that he was even with WWE until rewatching this. He came out and did his little dance thing with whoever his manager was. I'm not even sure who that was.
Lamont. I have no idea if he was even a wrestler or just somebody or just some random dude. But yeah, that was his manager, hype man Lamont. And like Ernest the Cat Miller's run was pretty forgettable. Like he just came out every week on SmackDown, danced, got a little booed by Vince McMahon one time. Just I don't know. There was just nothing remarkable about his little run here.
Yeah, which is too bad because there's another guy that he really did have some skills. They just never really let him show any of what he could do. And he was another guy. He came out and did his little dance number and then got promptly eliminated by Randy Orton as well. Once again, I think he was another less than a minute in the Rumble. And after Ernest the Cat Miller came out, the Olympian himself, Kurt Angle. So that was good to see. And Kurt Angle comes out and he sticks around for a fair long time here coming up. Makes it into the near the end for sure. So Kurt Angle was amazing during this time period. So I marked out watching him kind of in his prime again. It's good to see. He was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and so the next guy out is Rico.
And Rico, here's another guy that, he was, fairly prominent with the whole Chuck and Billy storyline when that was going on. But once they kind of made him solo, he really had nothing else going for him. Like, I don't think that he necessarily should have been a solo act. He was kind of perfect as the manager, the occasional wrestler in like a 6-man tag or something like that. But he definitely didn't have much else in the way of anything going for him. So he was kind of just another body in there that you knew was just out there to fill the ring and then promptly be eliminated.
And so next up is supposed to be Test. But he's found unconscious backstage, and Stone Cold tells whoever attacked him that he's the 21st entrant now, and it turns out to be Mick Foley.
And then this led to some fun stuff because Mick Foley and Randy Orton were having a little spat during this time frame. So when Mick Foley came out, him and Randy Orton really went at it, and I believe that Mick Foley actually eliminated Orton from the Rumble, and then they went on to their little extracurriculars outside the ring, and Mick Foley took some just horrendously scary, unprotected headshots from a chair, which he's well known for. But they continued to brawl around for a little while, and I'm not even sure if probably they missed some eliminations during that time frame too, because they weren't paying attention much to what was going on in the ring there. But it was a great storyline progression. This was a feud that went on for a little bit after this. So, this is what we were talking about earlier when the Royal Rumble is so good for these kind of things. You can it gives life to either new storylines or you can build current storylines going on. And this was definitely a great example of that.
Yeah, so the next guy in is Christian. And then after that is Nunzio, who gets a mandible claw with Mr. Sacco on the stage.
And then uses one of the best strategies that, too many people don't use this strategy in the Royal Rumble, and he just kind of sits out of the ring and, doesn't do anything, lets everybody forget about him until later on in the Rumble. So, he sold the injury for a while and then was pretty smart, as in my books.
So next guy in is the United States champion Big Show.
And once again, the big guy comes in and does some demolishing, eliminated a few people from, well, I guess he doesn't eliminate anybody really until farther on into the thing, but the usual big guy comes in, destroys everyone for a little bit, lays everybody out. And at this point, I mean, we still have number one entrant, Chris Benoit, still hanging around in there. And one thing I really, really enjoyed about Chris Benoit's run through this Rumble, usually when you got guys that become like the Iron Man, there's a lot of laying around, doing nothing. And I mean, there was a couple points where he did that, but he was actually pretty active throughout this Rumble doing whatever. He wasn't laid around in the corner or outside the ring too much. There's only really two segments or two times of any length that I can really remember him laying kind of in the corner, catching his breath. So I was very impressed by that aspect of his run through here.
Mm-hmm. So next guy in is Chris Jericho.
I love me some Chris Jericho, as is referenced by my username, the Saskatchewan Spinning Nerve Hold. So I mark out whenever Chris Jericho comes out into the ring. So I was happy to see him. And I mean, he didn't do terribly much in this Rumble other than eliminating Christian, I believe, but still always glad to see one of my favorites in the ring.
Yeah, and they do say that this is the second consecutive year where Jericho has eliminated Christian.
Oh yes, that's right. That was mentioned, and they had their little feud. I don't remember if that was before this Rumble or if it came afterwards.
It comes after this.
Okay, yeah, that was a fun little feud.
So next guy in is Charlie Haas.
Charlie didn't really do much. He hung around for probably about 7 or 8 minutes. I don't believe that he eliminated anybody, but he ended up getting eliminated when our number 30 entrant came in, because that man comes in later on and wreaks some havoc, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Next guy in, making his triumphant return, Billy Gunn.
Yes, Mr. Ass is back.
Yeah. Billy Gunn was out injured for a few months before this, and then he comes back, and the fans did not give a crap at all.
No, yeah, it was pretty much, nobody really cared at all for that one, which was too bad. I've always enjoyed Billy Gunn's shtick. He's a pretty fun guy to watch, and he's pretty decent hand between the ropes in my books.
Mm-hmm. Number 28, John Cena.
Back when he was the doctor of thugonomics. So yeah, this was always my favorite version of John Cena as well. So kind of fun to see that again, because he wasn't the dyed-in-wool good guy that we all know and love now. He definitely a little more character to him back in those days. So it was fun to watch for sure. And he promptly went after, or Big Show promptly went after him, because I believe they were not very fond of each other at this time period.
So number 29 is Rob Van Dam.
RVD comes in and starts throwing his feet around and dancing and jumping and doing his RVD stuff. Another fun guy to watch. Always love watching Rob Van Dam in the ring. But these last few, the ring really filled up here. There weren't a whole ton of eliminations going on right at this moment, until our number 30 man comes in, and that was.
And then the number 30 entrant, Goldberg.
And this is where the business starts picking up for the end here. He comes in. Nunzio had been hanging out at the end, and I believe it was Goldberg that threw him into the ring. Saw him sitting at the end, threw him into the ring. They did a little stuff, and then he promptly gets speared out of his boots. It's probably one of the nicest spears that Goldberg's ever thrown in his career. And it looked just brutal. And then Nunzio was quickly eliminated after that. Surprised he didn't actually get speared over the top rope, to be honest. And then I believe he also eliminated Charlie Haas and Billy Gunn in pretty short order. So he kind of started clearing out the ring, and then we lead into another little angle with Goldberg before when he gets eliminated.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar ends up coming in, and F5's Goldberg, and Goldberg gets eliminated by Kurt Angle, and that pretty much sets up their match at WrestleMania. We do get another build up to the match after this one at No Way Out.
So at this point, I think what we have, how many guys are left in the ring? We've got Rob Van Dam is still in there, Big Show, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, and Kurt Angle, I believe, were the final six, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I think the final four were Jericho, Big Show, Benoit, and Angle.
Yes. And then they did some nice stuff there. They were, Big Show, they're working over Big Show, Angle, or Big Show eliminates Chris Jericho, and then Angle starts going to work on Big Show and taking him down, taking the big man's legs out, putting the angle lock on him. And this led to Angle's elimination, which I had forgotten about this elimination, and it was some pretty impressive agility by the Big Show, in my opinion, for the size that he was at that time, to go over the top ropes like that and then roll back under and throw Angle out with his leg at the same time. I thought it was a really inventive and really cool looking elimination. Actually, one of my favorite eliminations of the whole show, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I will say this, even though I don't think Big Show was doing any particular good work, I did enjoy his work in this match. I thought he did well in this match.
Yeah, I mean, he played the monster heel to perfection. And then, especially when he's down to the last three with himself, Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle. I mean, he was definitely gave everybody thoughts that, okay, well, we're going to see Big Show winning this match because, these other two guys are way, way smaller. Then that really inventive, elimination of Kurt Angle, and that leads to Big Show and Chris Benoit fighting it out for the final spot to see who wins. And I thought they did pretty good here too. Benoit's throwing on the crippler crossface, wearing down the Big Show. And actually, Big Show tapped out 3 times during this match. He tapped out during the Walls of Jericho, during the ankle lock, and then to the crippler crossface. Not that tap outs mean anything in a Royal Rumble, but I thought that was interesting that they showed all of these guys being able to submit the giant.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chris Benoit gets the big elimination by taking the Big Show over the rope. And once again, it was a cool looking and believable elimination. So
I love the finish to this. It was so great.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better finishes in Royal Rumble history. It looks cool. And once again, it caps just an amazing story for Chris Benoit. The man was never going to get his world championship title match again, as dictated by Paul Heyman. So his really only option was to go out into the Royal Rumble and to win it. And did anybody think he was going to win from the number 1 spot? No, of course not, because really, had anybody won it from the number 1 spot at that point? I can't remember if Shawn Michaels had won before this or after, but either way, it was a pretty much unheard of thing. So it was good storytelling. They were definitely strapping the rocket to Benoit's back at this point, deservedly so, because he was amazing during this era. So it was great storytelling. It was a really good Rumble. There wasn't a whole lot of really silly stuff in it, but there was some because it's a Royal Rumble and that's always there.
Yeah, and so I thought this was a really good Royal Rumble match. There were definitely some bad camera shots here and there, as well as some dumb moments here. But overall, I thought it was a really good Rumble match.
Yeah, it's definitely up there on one of my favorites. And then, like I said, there was some really inventive stuff that happened with the Big Show Kurt Angle elimination. The Benoit elimination was great. The whole uh, Mick Foley, Randy Orton storyline progression there was good. Uh, the whole Brock Lesnar Goldberg stuff was pretty good, and the spear that Goldberg laid on Nunzio, that still like still remembered seeing that when that came back. I'm like, oh right, Nunzio gets killed here, poor guy. So it was good seeing that. Yeah, no, overall it was a really really good Rumble.
Yeah. So what do you think about the show in general?
Overall, I really actually quite enjoyed this show. I thought it was a pretty good show. Like we said before, some of the opening card matches definitely could have used a little bit extra time, especially Mysterio and Noble and Evolution and the Dudley Boys. But otherwise, I thought it was a pretty solid pay per view. Um, you know, you got some hit and miss stuff during this time period, but this one I would rank as a hit for sure.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty good show for the most part. It wasn't a perfect show. I think they really could have maybe added a bit more time to some of the matches on the undercard. But other than that, it was a pretty good show. It was enjoyable for what it was.
Yeah, exactly, and that's all that really a guy could ask for, right? Is you pop down your money and you're there for your. I guess this one wasn't all that long. It was what, probably 2.5, maybe 3 hours in total length. Probably not. I guess closer to 2.5, really. So it was a pretty breezy pay per view. It went by pretty quickly, but overall, yeah, it was a decent show.
Yeah, so I think this just about does it for this episode.
Well, thank you for having me on. This was fun, and it was nice to see some older wrestling that I haven't watched for a little while, and to refresh myself on it. So thanks for inviting me on this for this episode. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for being on. And where can they find you at?
You can find me hanging out in the threads on Cage Side Seats. I usually hang out in the daily, but you can find me occasionally on some of the other threads. You can also catch me on Twitter at GW Klein, KLEIN 75. And you can also catch me every Thursday morning on the Grounds for Development podcast. It's a podcast. We've been doing it for just over a month now, myself and Biff Kensington. And we talk about 205 Live and NXT. Couple of the best shows on WWE Network right now. So definitely give that a listen if you can. And we always welcome feedback. You can follow us on Twitter there as well at grounds for the number 4 dev1. Hit us up on Twitter or send us an email, and we'll definitely respond to anything you send us.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at melmat15, and I also hang out on the Cage Side Seats, hang out in the daily and the nightly. In the nightly, I'm currently doing a Black Sabbath series, Black Sabbath / Solo Ozzy series, and tonight I'm going to be taking a look at Black Sabbath's Sabotage album. So that should be an interesting one to listen to. And some other podcasts. Shooting the Breeze with Taker's Minion and Mr. Dr. Sinju every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. Connoisseurs of Wrestling with Taker's Minion, George Estaves, Legends Lover, and Biff Kensington every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Grounds for Development with 5 and Biff Kensington every Thursday morning, I believe it is.
You bet, every Thursday morning.
Violent Wrestling Podcast with me Ambrose Alley and Prince Moxley Lopez every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. And I think Two Guys One Sport every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. And I think that just about does it for the plugs. Next week will be a brand new episode of the Ruthless Aggression Era podcast because both Shaq Stewart and One Winged Angel will be joining me as we talk about No Way Out 2004. So that'll be a fun show to take a look at.
Sounds like fun. I'll definitely be tuning in.
Awesome. So thank you very much to Five for the Saskatchewan Spinning Nerve Hold for talking about the Royal Rumble 2004 and being on this episode. It was fun having them on.
And thanks for having me on. I very much enjoyed it.
Yep. So that just about does it for this episode. Anything else you want to add, Five, before we get out of here?
No, I think we are good.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And I will see you all next time. See ya.